Hey, and welcome again to the next installment of our ongoing series called Real Intelligence. And this is where we're taking a very close look at the functionality of the brain, but we're looking at it from a perspective of people who, like myself, we have a significant amount of melanin in our skin. And as I've said in previous videos, your skin color, for example, it gives us an indication on it. It's a flag, if you will. It lets us know that your body has unique needs. It doesn't mean that you're deficient. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're less than. It just simply means that, okay, it's the analogy I always like to use. If I go to a car dealership, if they're selling a Jeep, on one slot and the other slot, they're selling a sports car. The way they are treated, they're handled quite differently, especially when it comes to maintenance. Well, when we look at various human bodies that are out here, that's how we're to look at them as well, is that we all have unique needs. And so that is the perspective that we're looking at here when we're talking about the functionality of the brain. And our goal is to optimize it. And we're looking at all kinds of stuff here, anything from exercises to herbs that you can take to, just plants. I'm going to be talking about some plants as we did in our first installment. So if you missed the first installment, make sure you go back. It's that video that has introduction. I think it says introduction on it. But anyway, I'll have it here on the screen. Make sure you watch it. We try to keep it close and we keep it tight. Also, what we do is we also make available for you the audio version. So if you're someone that just prefers just to hear it via audio, we got something for you too. So in the description below, you'll see a link to the audio version. It's a podcast basically. So you can access it there as well. Okay, so before we get started, I want to bring, there you go. I want to make sure I was pointing right here. I want to bring this to your attention here. You see this image here? I just saw this just as I was sitting down to do this video. This is a woman. She looks like an older woman. I really don't know a whole lot about the situation other than the fact that for whatever reason, this woman decided to get a lawn chair and to sit the lawn chair in the middle of an interstate, a highway in the Houston area, and just sit there. Well, she's not just sitting there in the middle of a busy highway. She's also holding a gun. And they're saying that she was making some suicidal remarks and stuff like that. And, coupled that with a story that I covered on our other platform, a young black man, unfortunately, who's also was suicidal, and unfortunately he didn't make it. He was standing on top of, for those of you familiar with Atlanta, up as you're getting out of the perimeter area, there's the Spaghetti Junction, and that's where all these different highways converge. You have, 85, 285, and there's, I think it's another one that comes out of Buckhead, but anyway, they all converge there. So anyway, they tried to talk him not to jump, and unfortunately he did. And that story really didn't get a lot of, I haven't really seen it in the news, not really. My point in bringing this up is that, as I've been saying to you guys, the reason why we're doing this series, yes, we do have brain products, that we have over on sombertree.com, but that's just in response to what we have been seeing, what we're seeing now, and what we're anticipating in the future. And what we're seeing is, I have to be honest with you, it's actually going to get worse when it comes to mental health, because this is something that, for various reasons, it has not been widely taken seriously, especially when it comes to when we're talking about within what we call the black community. It's not something that's really taking that serious. We've learned to kind of live with it, to normalize it. And we can't do that, especially now, because there's so many different things, even in the last few years, that have come into our arena, if you will. We got vaccines and, increase of other issues and stuff that's going on in the political world and geopolitical world, all of that stuff. The economy, immigration, all of these different things, families, the stuff that we're seeing on social media is, men versus women and women versus men and all of this stuff, gender, identity and all of these things that are all coming up and converging. It's like someone just took a pot and just shook this thing, and it's not going to stop. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are not going to make it as a result. This is the reason why we're doing this, and this is why we're doing a free course that's going to go until we're finished. I think it's 11 weeks. So if you can hang on for 11 weeks, we're going to try to make sure we're covering every aspect of the brain. Again, the brain is something that we should have learned about in school. We did learn about some of it, but it should be like something that's just like we know our ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. We should also know the different areas of our brain and what those parts, what their responsibilities are. Heck, we're in front of computers all day. Computers are actually built on the model. They're models of the brain. It's man's way of trying to duplicate what our brains do. So it makes sense that we should understand this. This should be foundational education that we all should have. So I'm actually learning in the process too while we're doing this. So don't think it's just you. So today we're going to dive into our next topic. So let's go. Okay. So as I'm going here, I'll definitely have some things on the screen and all of that for you. But if you see me cutting my eye, it's because I'm looking at my notes here on screen. So, so I'm just letting you know. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about the cerebrum. All right. The cerebrum. I actually have this on the screen right now. The cerebrum is basically what we see when we look at it. We say, oh, that's the brain. Yeah, that's this whole space here. That not your skull, but your brain. Okay, what you see on that image there. And your cerebrum, basically, it's where you're speaking, you're planning, dancing or doodling. All of those things take place in your cerebrum, okay? And your cerebrum is actually divided into 2 hemispheres. And we're going to actually talk about those 2 hemispheres. Then we're going to go a little bit deeper, okay? So 2 hemispheres. And when you look at the brain or the cerebrum, what does it look like to you? What does it look like to you? Well, doesn't it look like a walnut? Yeah, it looks like a walnut, don't it? Yeah, it looks just like a walnut. Well, we're going to talk about walnuts in a little bit because there's a reason, I believe, why it does look like a walnut, So anyway, we'll get into that a little bit, but let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's jump right in. Okay, so let me start off with an example here. Okay, we have a beautiful young girl. Let's say she's about 19 years old. Her name is Aisha. All right. I'll put Aisha on the screen. Why not? Okay, so this is Aisha here. Okay, so Aisha, she's an art student and, very talented. And she was able to finally get into art school. She got accepted and, she was learning some things, but she kind of plateaued a little bit because in what she's drawing, it seems like she's just doing the same thing over and over again. It just looks a little bit different, but it's the same thing over and over again. She's even using the same colors over and over again. But then she sits down with her art teacher and it's like, okay, I feel like I'm in a rut. Is there something I could do to get out of this rut? Because it seems like my creativity has plateaued and I was so excited to get in school here, but it just seemed like it plateaued. And what can I do? And so the teacher turns to her and says, well, here's what you can do. Instead of you drawing or painting with your right hand or your dominant hand, I want you for the next week to start working with your less dominant hand. All right. I want you to start the LDH, your less dominant hand. I want you to start doodling. I want you to start drawing. I even want you to start writing with it. It's going to be a little bit difficult because it's like, whoa, you try to figure it out. but I want you to do it about a week and let's see what happens. So anyway, Aisha goes ahead and she does that. For the next week, she's practicing, writing and drawing and all of that with her less dominant hand. And then about a week or so later, she begins to notice something. All of a sudden, creativity starts coming in. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Now, okay, I'm getting inspired. In fact, I'm getting a little excited here because now wait a minute, I ain't think of that before. That is what we're going to talk about. And like Aisha, you can experience the same thing. And I'm already tipping my hat a little bit. And that, yeah, I'm giving you some clues of what we're going to be talking about. The importance of using your less dominant hand and what it does to your brain. So this is going to be quite fascinating. So let's go a little bit further with this. Okay, so I got the brain image back up, or the cerebrum image back up. Okay, now we're going to look at the different parts. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so we got the left hemisphere. Now you have the left hemisphere. You also have the right hemisphere. Now, traditionally, what we've heard, I'm gonna read to you the definition of it, but I kind of want to lay it out here for a little bit. Traditionally, what we've heard up until some years ago, recent years, we've always heard that the left brain is all the logic and the right brain is creativity. That is true with, with an asterisk. Because what you're going to find is that they both kind of share those responsibilities. Okay, so let me get into it. Okay, so the left hemisphere often handles fine-grained language and step-by-step logic, but it also partners with the right side for complex work. Okay, so it tends to skew in the area of, when fine-grained language, right? When you're doing that step-by-step logic and just thinking something through, that's the left-hand side of your brain. However, it will also kind of lean on the right-hand side too, when it needs a little bit more development in what it's doing there, right? So that's the left side of the brain. Now, this is the right side, or the right hemisphere. It leans towards big picture, right? Your right side of your brain, that's where the inspiration comes in, right? It's spatial and creative processing, yet it still relies on the left side, for full understanding. Because the left side, that's where is looking at the details, right? And so what I just described to you, it's not clearly like just straight, like left side is logic, right side is going to be a completely creativity. It doesn't exactly work that way. If you was to see kind of like a diagram of these vessels and stuff like that, you'll see it's just in a very elaborate network here. And they both kind of share things, and I'm gonna tell you how they share that in a moment. Now you have this thing called the corpus callosum. All right, corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is basically the bridge that connects both sides, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. So when you want to talk about a busy bridge, the corpus callosum, that is a very busy bridge. I mean, if we could show it in light, I mean, I could just imagine it's just shoo, 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 shoo. There's no traffic. It can't be any traffic jams. It can't be. It's just constant movement of thoughts and ideas and inspiration and all of that, So the corpus callosum is what connects the two. All right, let's get to the next thing. So the next thing is what you have heard is called gray matter. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of videos in a little bit so you can really visualize this, okay? Now, the gray matter is the thinking cells on the surface. Well, if you were to actually look at the brain, like a human brain, right, you're going to see that it actually looks kind of gray on the surface, right? Now, what scientists tell us is that it's not actually gray. It's actually kind of tannish. And the only reason why it looks gray to us when you have a doctor or scientist, that's inspecting it, and you're going to see it in a moment, is because once they take it out of the human body, it actually begins to turn from a tannish to a more gray. All right. So that's what they tell. So it's not exactly gray. It's just that, when people actually see the brain, by the time that, if you're looking at a brain, that probably means that more likely means the person's dead. If you've seen an operation, for example, them doing like a brain surgery, and you can see the brain, it's not gray. The outside surface isn't really gray. It's like a tannish. And so, but it's just one of those terms that stuck. And so that's why they refer to that as gray matter. This gray matter, it has thinking cells. It's all these beautiful thinking cells. That's what you see on the surface. Okay, so that's the gray matter. Now, the white matter is what you see on the inside. If you were to kind of split it in half, you're going to see this white matter. It's white, right? And that contains all the wiring that sends signals deep on the inside of the brain. Okay. So there you go. So we got left hemisphere, right hemisphere, the corpus callosum, that's the bridge, gray matter, which is the external, or the cortex. That's what it's referred to as. And then we have white matter. Okay. All right. So hope you guys got that. Let's move on. So just to emphasize again, so if you're writing a song or trying to solve a puzzle or, anything like that, or you're telling a joke or writing a book, you're going to see engagement from both sides of your brain. Okay. And if you're just had a little camera, again, this corpus callosum, if you were to look at all the signals that's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, they all work together. So it's not, don't think of your left hemisphere as, if you're doing math, it's all lit up on this side and this side is dormant. No. Or if you want to be creative, this side is active and then that side is dormant. No, they both work together. All right. It's because anything we experience in life or encounter in life, it's going to incorporate logic, creativity, all of that in one interaction. So it's very, very important. That's why I just want to keep emphasizing that. So let's go. So one thing I want you to note is your left side of your brain and your right side of the brain, where they operate the opposite sides of your brain. It's really fascinating how that works. And the corpus callosum, you want to know how busy that is, that bridge is? They're estimating about 250 million nerve fibers that are across that bridge. It's like think of a fiber optic network, kind of, that's kind of how it looks. So that wrinkly outer layer that we talked about with the cerebrum, when you're looking at a brain, you see that wrinkly thing. Again, that's that gray matter area, right? And that is what we had mentioned earlier. That's where your thinking cells are. That's where you're going to find all of that. And it's just constant activity that's going on that level. And then beneath it, you have, as I mentioned earlier, you have the white matter. Okay, now the white barrier, the white matter. Okay, the white matter. It carries messages, just like I said, to and fro along a layer. It's a fatty layer. It's called the myelin tracts. The myelin tracts. Okay. And these are highways. And if the myelin tracts, if they're healthy, that means you can go, you supercharge. Those messages are going even faster. Well, you can assume if they're not healthy, what's going to happen? It's going to be New York City, baby. It's going to be every busy highway you ever been on. If you lived in Southern California, the 405, the 91. If you live in Georgia, 285, 85, 75. It's going to be every slow highway. And so this is why, again, it's important for us to make sure we're adding the right nutrients in our diets so that those highways can stay very open, and it's a high speed line. Remember what we said about walnuts? We're going to get to it. Okay, we're going to get to the walnuts in a moment, but let's continue. Now, we update our computers all the time, don't we? We also update our cell phones all the time. But what if I was to tell you that you can upgrade your brain? Yeah, you can. You can upgrade your brain. One of the ways you can do it, and I'm gonna share some of those some of those examples for you, is by using your less dominant hand. And when you do that, what happens in your brain is that all of those it fires off a bunch of neurons that you remember last week we were talking about this. It's like when you're learning something new, it just branches out, new branches create. Well, that's what happens when you're using your less dominant hand. When you're doing that, you're opening up new neurons, right? You're doing that, and they're opening up in different patterns and just really something else. And then also what happens, it thickens that cortex. It thickens that gray matter, so that now it's like that. Now it's even thicker. Now you got more space for those thinking cells to be moving along and doing things and passing information and all of that stuff. And then it also polishes that white matter. And so when it's polished and it's clean and all of that, it's basically upgrading. It's upgrading. So your brain is actually going through an upgrade when you're using your less dominant hand. And we're going to, like I said, I'm going to give you some examples of that in a moment. Okay, so now what I want to do is I found about 3 videos that I want to share with you. We're not going to look at all 3 of them in their entirety, but enough for you to get an idea so you can visualize what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and do that, okay? Now, I want you to take note because I'm doing a screen capture. So you'll see the title of the video along with the name of the channel underneath the video. So if you want to go watch that and other things on their channel, just take a screenshot, take a note of it, and go on their channel. Okay. So let's go into the video room and let's take a look at these videos.
In this video, I'm going to talk about gray and white matter. In the central nervous system, which is mostly the brain and the spinal cord, there are areas called gray matter, that contain most of the neuron somas. So most of the neuron somas in the central nervous system are found in the gray matter. And then there are other areas called white matter. And in the white matter of the central nervous system is most of the myelinated axons. Myelinated, so axons that are wrapped in myelin, myelinated axons. And these are actually kind of funny names for these parts of the central nervous system because they're really not gray or white. They're all kind of different tan colors in life. But when the tissue is prepared certain ways after being removed from the body, it can have a grayish appearance or a more whitish appearance. And so these are the names that have stuck for these general areas, the gray matter and the white matter. Now the distribution of gray matter and white matter is a little different between the spinal cord and the brain. If we look first at the spinal cord here, and here we have a really nice illustration of some different sections of the spinal cord. So right over here, what these drawings represent are different levels of the spinal cord, like if we made little sections of it, like if we were cutting a loaf of bread and kind of cut from the top down to the bottom. And then we're looking down at these sections from the top, so that we're kind of looking down this way at the different sections over here in these drawings. And what we see in the spinal cord is that most of the gray matter of the spinal cord is on the inside, this kind of H shape or this butterfly shape of gray matter. And the white matter of the spinal cord is mostly on the outside, all this stuff outside this H shape of gray matter. And it's a little hard to see on these drawings, so let me just take like this one, for example, and let me just draw it here just a little bigger. So I'll just draw kind of an oval, like we're looking down at the top of a section of the spinal cord. And on the inside is going to be the gray matter that's going to be in this kind of H shape or this butterfly shape. Let me just draw the back part here. And all of this stuff would be gray matter. So it'd be lots of neuron somas that would give it a different color from the white matter on the outside. And let me just draw in a little bit of white here on the outside, because that's how the spinal cord is set up, with most of its myelinated axons forming white matter on the outside. except for this little bit here where the gray matter goes to the very back of the spinal cord.
Okay, so as you can see that it starts to get a little more complex when you're starting to see how it's connected to your spinal cord, and you still have that gray matter, that white matter, stuff going on there, material that you can see. It goes all along your spinal cord. So it's, we're talking about here, but then it goes down here where it's connected to even more things all throughout your body. So, but let's continue. I want to move on to the next video. Okay, so now in this next video, you're going to see, he's going to actually show you the gray matter and the white matter and what it actually looks like. So if you're a little squeamish, whatever, I mean, I think you'll be fine. So, but let's take a look. Again, we're not going to watch the whole video. I just want you to actually see it. Okay. Let's take a look.
So many people are curious about the difference between gray matter and white matter. It helps to have a visual for sure. And while I was doing some dissection work in the Nerve Project, I created a kind of a section of brain tissue that made the distinction visually super clear. So I thought I'd show that to you and tell you some stories about gray matter and white matter. Come on down to our little shrine table here and have a look. We have a section of our beloved captain's brain tissue here. And Captain had, a bit of a brain trauma, actually, as he passed. And so we don't have kind of a regular border here as we might expect in a section of this tissue. But you might not know what a section of this tissue looks like anyway, so that's okay. What I'm really wanting to focus on here, actually, is this color difference. See, look at this. We have on the outskirts of this section this beautiful wavy coastline here. Do you see how if you follow me, if you did this every day and followed this, you'd have better eyesight for sure. See how it goes in and out, and we're following the convolutions of the surface of the cerebrum, right, and its cortex. So we're going to call this the neocortex, right, the surface here. The new part of the brain, as it were, because we humans kind of have big brains. We haven't really caught up to the dolphins yet, but we're doing all right. So here, this darker section, we're going to call that gray matter. And this lighter section, we're going to call that white matter. Now, if you were actually a colorist or an artist dealing with pigments, you would say that's not gray and that's not white, right? Well, the colors, just consider them ideas, right, rather than exact color reference. But so our gray matter is on the outside here. Our white matter is deep to that. And on the surface of the gray matter, we have some membrane here. That's the arachnoid right there. So the arachnoid is like a drapery over the brain tissue. The arachnoid, there's a beautiful membrane there. Actually, I'm going to flip this over so I can show you that membrane a little better. You can see there are little convolutions even on the inside here. But let me get that arachnoid again. No, it's not easier on this side, actually. I was doing better on the other side. There you go, arachnoid. And what I want you to see is that the arachnoid kind of drapes over the top. But you see the arachnoid doesn't poke down through the gyrate. The arachnoid doesn't follow the exact convolutions of the gray matter.
I'm going to stop here for just a moment here, but I just want to make sure, again, you see that gray matter. We're looking at a slice of it, right? We're just looking at a slice of the brain here. And so you see the gray matter, which is on the top, which is also referred to as the cortex. And then you have the white matter, which is here. And as you get down further into the brain, like in towards the center of it, you also go, the cortex or the gray matter isn't just on the surface. You will also find it as you're getting closer to the center as well. And so it's, but you see the separation there. I'm just going to play for like another minute and then we're going to move on.
But the pia does, and the pia is this sort of remnant surface here. It's only one or two or three cell layers thick, and the pia is coating the surface of the actual neuronal tissues, whereas the arachnoid is kind of draped over the whole structure. So arachnoid and pia, gray matter, white matter. Now, why is it colored differently? Well, because form follows function a little bit and color follows structure. So the gray matter is the cell bodies of the neurons.
That's
so
where the
neurons
thinking
have their
takes place.
cell bodies, and they have their axons. Axons are long prolongations from the cell bodies, and they also have dendrites. Now, the dendrites are closer to the cell body. They're not as long. So the dendrites are connecting to other nerve cell bodies, all in this gray matter. So there's an incredible communication network here. And then as the nerve cell bodies throw off their axons here, the axon is wrapped in what we call glial cells in the brain. Glial cells, they're connective tissue cells. So the white is indicative of a fatty connective tissue cell that's wrapping the axon of the neuron. Now, in another video, I talked about the difference between a nerve and a neuron, and you might want to watch that one to understand that. But so here we have axons from the nerve cell bodies concentrated in the gray matter that, because they're fatty wrappings around the nerves, they give it a different color. It's as simple as that. So we have...
I'm going to stop it there. But yeah, so I just wanted you to see that. And let me see real quick here, this third video. Let's watch this and see. I'm trying to remember what was in this. So let's take a look at this one.
When we think of the brain, we usually think of grey matter, this yellow-grey, squishy folded tissue that makes up the cortex. But underneath is a lesser known but equally important tissue. It's called white matter, and it takes up nearly half your brain. But what is white matter, and what does it do?
White matter is the brain's information superhighway. It's made up of bundles of nerve fibers called axons. These connect grey matter regions to one another, transferring messages via electrical signals. A fatty sheath of insulation called myelin speeds up conductance of these impulses by 100-fold. You can think of it like using a train network to travel around a city.
So if you want to get from point A to point B, and point B is 5 kilometres away, you could walk, but it'd take you some time. But if you catch a train, it's much faster, and it's the same with your brain.
White matter sends signals fast. Without it, these signals would weaken as they travelled along the axon. So it makes communication between regions in your brain easier and faster. Problems with white matter have been linked to diseases like Alzheimer's and MS.
But the good news is you can change your white matter for the better. Learning an instrument or a martial art are 2 ways that have been shown to work, and a recent study showed that fit kids are better at paying attention, reasoning, and retaining memories. So on that note, I'm off for a workout.
There you go. You know, I wanted to, I went a little extra there with those different video clips, but I wanted you to get a visual of what we're talking about here when it comes to the gray matter, the white matter, and does it even matter? Yeah, it does. And so, yeah, I just wanted you to get a visual. So let's move on to the next section. Okay, so now we're at our word bank. Our word bank section. Okay, so this is just a quick review because remember, at the end of every class, we're going to have a quiz. Okay, so I'm trying to help you out as we're going along here. Okay, so anyway, so you got hemisphere. Hemisphere is one half of the cerebrum. Your cerebrum is basically what you see, the wrinkly, all of that right there. That's your cerebrum, okay? So hemisphere, you got a left hemisphere and then you have a right hemisphere, okay? Cortex. The cortex is basically the thinking surface or the gray matter, right? That's where all the thinking takes place, okay? So the cortex, that's the layer. That's the outmost layer there, all right? Next thing is the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum, that is the bridge. That's the nerve bridge that connects the 2 halves. The corpus callosum. Let's go to the next one. Gray matter. I just mentioned that to you. That's where the neurons are. Remember we talked about neurons last week? That's where all those neurons are on your brain there. They're just firing away. They're passing on information. Your gray matter. Remember, that's your thinking level. And then your white matter. The white matter, it's signal wires under the cortex. This is where your superhighway is located, all in that white matter. Let's move on. Okay, so now we're at the herbs, food, and houseplant section, okay? Now, remember I told you about walnuts and I said, walnuts, they look like our brains, right? They look like our cerebrums, right? Well, it's interesting because, I've heard people say this. They said fruits are oftentimes shaped like the body part that it's designed for. Okay, so you could take that for its worth. I do think there may be something to that, especially when it comes to walnuts. Well, why are walnuts very good for your brain? Well, it's packed with ALA omega-3, all right, that builds flexible neuron membranes. So that's very good, especially for that outer layer of your brain, right, where all the thinking takes place. So you want to make sure that, walnuts is something. It's certainly not the only source for omega-3s, but it is a source. Okay, there's other places where you can get it, like I think fish oils. I believe you can get it from there as well. But walnuts for sure is something that you would want to, if you're able to eat them, because they're good for that thinking level. All right. Of that thinking layer, I should say. Let's move on to the next thing. Okay, now blueberries, they provide what's called anthocyanins, and what they do is they protect the memory circuits, right? They just add some protection on all that circuitry in there. So blueberries again, so walnuts, blueberries, your brain is like, okay, you speaking my language. So yeah, so that's another one you want to include when it comes to, foods. And I got a quick recipe for you. You could try it out. If not, yeah, you could try something that's a little bit different here. But anyway, it's you take 1 cup of unsweetened plant milk. That could be walnut milk or almond milk or whatever. And then 3/4 of a cup of frozen blueberries. I'll get my I'm already wanting this thing. 1 tablespoon of walnut butter, and a 1/2 tablespoon of cinnamon. And you mix that up together, and yeah, that sounds kind of good. So that's a way you can take that, okay? And cinnamon, of course, has its own long list of benefits as well for your body. So yeah, so take that in consideration. Now let's talk about houseplants. Well, last week we talked about the benefits of spider plants, right? And I told you if you have one, take some time and look it up and see what all the benefits and properties are of spider plants. One of which, as it pertains to your brain, is that it releases air. It does a way where it releases oxygen at night while you're sleeping. So this is a great plant to have next to your bed. And I told y'all last week, I said, I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna have my plant this week. Well, I don't know what it is. I guess it's where I live. I could not find a spider plant. I could not, but I was able to find my friend here, the snake plant. Yeah. I got my snake plant, and come to find out, this is even better. So yeah, a snake plant, this is a small little one here, and we're going to take good care of it. But snake plants, they usually they get to be quite tall. Snake plants, for our purposes in this class, they're very good. Again, they're good for releasing that oxygen at night. And you don't really have to water it as much, really, as spider plants. So snake plants are really good for that. So this is a plant you want to have because, again, oxygen is good for your cells in your brain. Okay. And so you want to make sure you're getting that rich oxygen in your room at night, because typically most people, when they go to sleep, all the windows are closed. Right. And so, you got oxygen, but man, I want some fresh oxygen. Plus, this helps to clean the air a little bit too. So definitely you want a snake plant, spider plant. These are great to have around the house. And I will also add is plants like this one, snake plant. They're very good for, radiation, reducing radiation as well. So if you got Wi-Fi, and who doesn't these days in your house, you definitely want to have some snake plants around the house. Okay. So yeah, that's something to check out. Okay. So now we got some exercises here. These are some assignments that you can do, start doing these now. And I'll also, as I'm talking, I'll have some things on the screen that you can check out. You can pause the screen, the video, so that you can take notes and all of that, because I'm just going to move to this rather quickly. Remember earlier I told you, if you want to upgrade your brain, You want your brain to do, we upgrade our devices all the time. We should be upgrading our brain, right? Well, what's a way to do that? Well, using your less dominant hand. And so what you can do, and I've actually started doing this. There's a couple of things I've been doing is I have my little notebook, and what I'm doing is it's my journal, my daily journal. Instead of writing with my right hand, I've been writing with my left hand. I wish I could show you. I mean, it looks like a 2-year-old child writing it. I mean, it just, I'm making it work. You know, it's legible, but it's quite challenging. And, but the more I do it, I'm noticing that it's getting a little bit easier. Another thing I'm doing, since I'm at the computer a lot, I'm right-handed. And so what I do is I move my mouse to the left-hand side. And yeah, it's a little bit challenging, but I'm getting right. I'm chugging right along, getting things done and all of that. And so those are two things. Another thing you could do is brushing your teeth. Instead of brushing your teeth with your right hand, start doing it with your left hand. If you are a tea drinker or coffee drinker, you want to, instead of using your dominant hand, use your less dominant hand. Anything that you would typically do with your dominant hand, start passing some of that off to your less dominant hand. And what that's doing, it's growing all of these new neurons. It's growing all these neurons in your brain. There's new branches that are breaking out. Now, what I'm going to put on the screen is just gives you some kind of idea of how long it will take before you actually start noticing some things. Now, it ain't down to the exact second or day or week or whatever, but it's approximate. So take some time, go through this, and yeah, you'll start noticing some things. And I'm going to tell you, I could tell you, since I've been doing it, I have been noticing that there's certain things man, how did I remember that? It's like certain things now are literally popping in my brain. Things that I haven't thought about in a long time. All of a sudden, I'm just noticing just a tinge, and it's just coming up. Like I notice even when I'm doing videos, it's like some things that I remember. So yeah, so you definitely, this is a great way to, to grow those neurons in your brain and expand those highways and all of that in your brain, in that white matter. Definitely do that. Okay. Next thing would be, since this week's plant is the snake plant, well, get to know your plant. That's what I'm going to do. Get to know your plant. Well, I've actually already read, but I'm going to see if there's anything else I want to learn. I can learn about it. Get to know your plant and write some notes down with your less dominant hand on that, okay? So that it can stick in your brain, okay? So yeah, so get to know your plant, your snake plant. And of course, I just talked to you about the journal, your brain journal. Start, if you have one already, we told you to get one last week. If you have one, start from now, every now and then, try to write in it with your left hand. I know it's going to be challenging and you're going to be giggling and laughing at yourself too in the process. But trust me, your brain is like, okay, all right, this is new, so that's what you want. New experiences for your brain. And in fact, I'll give you just some quick, just a general sense of how long it will take before you start noticing some things. So days 3 to 7, it's going to be awkward. I'm still at that awkward stage. But it's going to get easier. And I am noticing it's starting to get a little bit easier. When you go from weeks 1 to 2, it's going to get smoother. You're going to start noticing things getting a little bit smoother. And and what they're saying is it's going to be a lot easier for us to start recalling things. I told y'all I'm doing this right along with you. So I'm excited. But I've told you, I've already started noticing that I'm remembering things that I'm like, wow, sometimes it just pops in my brain, So I'm slightly noticing that. And please keep in mind too, everybody's different, but this is just kind of a general range. Okay. Let's get to the next one. 4 to 6 weeks, what you should be seeing. Bigger gains. Find yourself grabbing utensils with your left hand. It's going to start becoming normal for you to start using your left hand without even thinking. That's the level I'm trying to get at, where I'm using my both hands, my left or my right. And so that's exciting. And I don't want to be alone with this. Can y'all join me with this? I would love to have some company, and I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Let me know. Give me some updates on what you're experiencing with that. Okay. So finally, we are at the quiz time. Okay. So put all your notes away. I want no cheating in here, okay? Because I'm going to be walking all throughout the aisles, and I want to make sure if I catch you, no. But no, let's go ahead and go through it, okay? And, if you got to stop and rewind, that's okay. That's all a part of learning, okay? So here's our first question, okay? First question is the corpus callosum. What does it do? It connects what? The brain stem and the cerebellum, the hemispheres, or the lobes of the cortex. Let me say that again. The corpus callosum, it connects the brain stem, the cerebellum, or the lobes of the cortex. Okay, next question. The gray matter, it contains mostly what? Fatty myelin, neuron bodies, or spinal fluid? Is it fatty myelin, neuron bodies, or spinal fluid? All right, next one. Which hemispheres tend to handle language in most right-handed people? Think about it. Think about what I said earlier. Which hemisphere tends to handle language in most right-handed people? All right, next one. True or false? White matter speeds up signals because it's coated in myelin. White matter speeds up signals because it's coated in myelin. True or false? All right. And then last one is name one nutrient benefit of walnuts. Name one nutrient benefit of walnuts. All right. So there you go. I think we are done. I think we have finally reached the end. And please take these courses very seriously. Someone said a while back, they said, if you give something away free, people tend to treat it as that. I am begging you, don't treat this as free. Treat this as something that can literally change not just your mindset, but really change your life for real. If you do take this seriously and take the time to go through this and talk it over with your family, your friends, and all of that, and put some of these things into practice, okay? I'm going to do it. I don't know about y'all, but I'm certainly going to do it, okay? Now, next week, we're going to talk about the frontal lobe, all right? That's the planner part of our brain. We're going to get into that, and they said how we're going to learn how 10 squats a day can sharpen decision-making. Just doing 10 squats a day. Let me add something for you. When you do push-ups, guess how many your man doing right now? How many push-ups I'm doing a day? 200. I'm doing 200 push-ups a day. And boy, oh boy, I actually looked up. I was very curious about this because I was like, I got to know. I just got to know what are the benefits of doing push-ups to the brain. All right. I'll just give it to you real quick. It boosts blood flow to the brain. It enhances alertness, improves concentration, and it supports brain nourishment. These are push-ups. All right. Reduces stress and anxiety. Yeah, I need that. It lowers cortisol. It promotes a calmer, more focused mindset. And it helps manage anxiety symptoms. Number 3, it improves cognitive function, better memory, sharper decision-making skills, faster processing speed. And it also enhances sleep quality, supports neuroplasticity. It builds discipline and mental resilience. So yeah, I am doing that every day. I'm doing my 200 push-ups a day, and I'm also doing my solar walk. What's my solar walk? That's when I'm spending at least 30 minutes a day out in the open sun. All right. And I say 30 minutes because of our melanin, because I have darker melanin. If you're dark, kind of like me, you need to spend at least 30 minutes in the sun, in getting that sunlight. People who have less melanin, you can go back to 20 minutes. You need, if you're someone that's white, they said you at least need 20 minutes. But anybody else beyond that, 20 to 30 minutes. So I go for the full 30. And so, yeah, so combine those two together. I have definitely been noticing some differences. I'm telling you. So make sure I hope you guys are enjoying this. Let me know in the comment section if you're doing any of this. Please, I would love to hear from you, and let's grow together. Let's start changing our mindset so that we can start walking in this space of just a brighter mind and a mind that, for real, y'all, is, really we're gonna change some things for real. We're gonna break some bad habits, and we're going to walk in real intelligence. Okay. Thank you so much. You guys take care, and I will be talking to you again soon. Take care.